Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome. Today I finally break down the Persistent Universe monthly report for September. As always, a huge thank you to all of my patrons and channel members. Thank you guys so much for the support, it is truly appreciated. So let's kick off with AI content. The team concluded their work on the new worker behavior, which will be used to quickly add life to various environments, replacing many legacy behaviors until environmental specific AI is added. They also added security tier 0 to Outposts, with NPCs now able to find and use usables on their patrols, making their routes feel more believable and less robotic, as well as NPCs able to now guard entrances by blocking entry or checking IDs. And I think we kind of saw a little bit of this in its very rudimentary form at the CitizenCon demo in Pyro, with the security guards just standing at the doors. The bartender vendor was extended to the new cafe tables to allow players to order soft drinks at locations in Area 18. And finally, progress continued on the patron and goods dealer behaviors, as well as doctors and nurses in New Babbage and Orison's hospitals. For the AI features team, they continued their work on perception changes for stealth, creating a mechanism to tweak the ranges of sound events like weapons firing, bullet impacts, footsteps, and vaulting. It's nice to hear that they can just adjust the range at which the NPCs can hear these types of events, which will definitely play into the whole stealth mechanics, but also just AI perception in general. Progress was made on melee combat, improving the combo system to make it more data-driven so designers can add new combos easily and quickly. Previously, combo attacks were set up in the subsumption logic of the melee attack behavior, so stringing multiple single attacks together, and now a single combo attack task is used to improve the responsiveness between the parts of the combos. The team also worked on a solution for the AI hitting low and high targets with melee attacks, adjusting the spine bone's rotation up and down to bend towards the target. I assume all of this will just be adding more depth and realism to the melee combat, like hand-to-hand combat for the AI, making sure it doesn't seem so robotic and looks a bit more natural. The cleanup of motion capture animation assets for carrying, surrendering, perception reactions, and unarmed cover usage continued, and finally they fixed issues with ships defending a lead ship and getting stuck in a loop trying to select a new target. So moving on to the AI tech team, they focused on optimizing several AI systems to improve performance, including the turret behaviors. Focus was given to make 3D collision avoidance for AI ships work in complex scenes with narrow spaces, where bounding boxes for obstacles aren't a viable solution. Now this is referring to how the AI can navigate their ships around areas that are quite densely populated with objects that they will need to avoid. A variety of updates to pathing, pathfinding, path execution, and movement continued alongside progress on the planetary navigation. My fingers are firmly crossed to get AI planetside in 3.16. Let us hope so, because that will open up a whole wealth of new missions. For the subsumption editor, they finished implementing the docking system, which will enable them to reorganize the UI. It'll be quite amazing watching AI ships coming and docking. It's likely one of the AI abilities required to have the NPCs capable of traveling around the verse and delivering goods, which will definitely tie into the whole quantum simulation, the economy, and so on and so forth. Now onto the animation team. They have been improving vendors, including adding new items and location-based assets and transitions to give a more lifelike result. They also discussed how to best implement emotional state idles to characters to give them more life when idling. And I do love how CIG go to this kind of effort, giving more emotion and even just an idling situation where they're not doing anything, but instead of just standing there statically looking like an NPC, it sounds like they may blend a bit more in with the environment and just look a bit more natural. The work on patron animations continued, implementing new ones to give a more robust feel to NPCs at bars and counters, with the team saying, "We dropped in a considerable amount of new animations for characters sitting and are working towards the day when no character looks like a statue, but rather a living, breathing person. Some of these animations have not been fully edited yet, but we wanted to get them in so we can feel out the results in the PTU and PU. So it does sound like we will be seeing this in the PU, but they will not be perfect yet, so do expect some pretty wonkier NPCs maybe until they are tuned, but hopefully they are an improvement on what we have already. Now for players, the team have been reworking various select and deselect asset sets so they work well in all instances, including the new inventory system, and alongside the improvements to the drunk locomotion, new drop assets were implemented to significantly improve the visuals. The inventory system has definitely come a long way since we first got our hands on it in Evocati. It is now much more robust, smooth, and visually pleasing, but there is still a long way to go to get it, obviously, to its final state. Now, the character art team progressed with Alpha 3.16 content, including a texture update pass on all DNA archetype heads. Now, this, they say, will massively improve the quality of the character customizer and NPC heads for both the PU and Squadron 42. So, very happy to hear about this coming for 3.16. The heads are in a bit of a dire need of a quality update, so let's hope that this gives that much needed improvement. Plus, I really hope to see my head scan in there one of these days, so that I can play as myself. I don't know when that's supposed to be coming in. Anyway, for Pyro, the concept artists continued creating costume packs for the Frontier-style clothing that will serve as the basis of clothing for the whole system. Multiple armors were also modeled for the Xenothreat gang using the Clarkson Defense Systems armor as a base. I'm really looking forward to seeing the Frontier clothing style. I do feel like it's going to be more my style for my character, but we are yet to see any examples. Now, the ship art team completed final art for the Ares. This involved implementing the new large-scale glow workflow for the thrusters and improved lighting, which is what I think we saw on Inside Star Citizen a few weeks back. They also set up 2 branches for the material system to support both the non-armoured Ion and armoured Inferno when applying tints, so each version of the ship will appear slightly different. Now, the Drake Vulture moved into the grey box stage. Its interior is now completed and the team are focusing on finishing the exterior, including the reclamation arms, nose grinder, body, cockpit, landing gear and thrusters. Finally, they added a collapsible exterior ladder to allow players to access the cockpit from the arm. So interesting to hear that it is a collapsible ladder now, as before, or on the concepts, it looked like it was more of a permanent fixture. Not that I'm complaining, I think it will be a nice touch, but very excited to see how the reclamation arms, the nose grinder, and the Drake Vulture in general will look in-game. One of the previously mentioned unannounced ships is currently in the final art phase, with a focus on polishing material nacelles. Attention is currently directed at dynamic animations to give players more feedback when the ship is in motion. Not sure which ship this could be. I don't think it's the 400i, although it does mention nacelles, dynamic animations for motion. My guess is it could be the Misk Refinery ship, but that is, as I say, just a guess. Do let me know in the comments what ship you think it could be. Another ship mentioned in last month's report is now complete, with the team planning a bug fixing pass and preparing to set up for final tint range. It also says an unannounced ship moved through the pipeline while several others reached the final art stage. It does sound like there is a lot of unannounced vehicles coming along. I suspect we will see a good chunk of these at this year's IAE, but some very sneaky ships. Finally, the upcoming Misk cargo ships progressed well, with the Hull C having numerous details finalised, while the Hull A is approaching its white box review. Really hope the Hull C does make it in for 3.16 and doesn't slip. It'll be a good sign that the cargo refactor is making its way in as well, and I will be working on a end of year video for what content we could be seeing, what CIG have said they want to bring out for 3.16, but also what could potentially come, so do keep an eye out for that. Now, for the audio team, Orison had a final push with the sound effects and dialogue for Cousin Crows and the Crusader showroom completed, alongside an ambience polish pass, voiceover tours, and mixing. Plus, for Orison Spaceport, music progressed, and the rest stop at Grim Hex Hospital locations received their final sound effects and dialogue passes. The tech sound design team and sound effects teams worked together to add effects for the medical bed and bomb delivery UI, and finally audio worked on sound effects and dialogue for the Intergalactic Aerospace Expo. So moving on to the engine segment, for the physics team they continue to optimize backend code, including soft body physics implementation. Various parts of relevant collision detection routines were optimized algorithmically. Soft body topology, loading and building, baking code, and memory management were improved as well. Now, I believe this soft body work is relating to the recent completion of the damage and breakability work to enable ships to react accordingly when taking damage from weapons, crashing into other ships or planetary terrain, giving that realistic crumple and damage effect. I could be wrong, it could be something completely different, but I believe that is what it's referring to. If someone has more of an insight, please do drop it into the comments below. For the renderer, work continued on the global draw packet cache. A mechanism was added to rebuild the cache when necessary. Its logic was also refined to prevent the unnecessary reaction of draw packets with identical arguments, which is important for brushes apparently. Not sure what all of this means or does, but obviously any work on the renderer is great to hear. Talking of which, we have some more high-level information for the Gen 12 renderer. It says they have completed another step in the transition to the new renderer paradigm. The shader system received several changes as well, which will be rolled out post Alpha 3.15, and they say this should fix a long-standing issue for some users. Do not know what that issue is. Finally, for the Gen 12 renderer, there were various changes to refactor and transition code to Gen 12. For more information and progress on the Gen 12 renderer and Vulcan, do check out my video covering the CitizenCon panel on this. I'm hoping by the end of the year they can at least get to milestone 1, which is everything running with the Gen 12 renderer but still using DirectX 11 API. If they can achieve that, then we should start seeing some improvements in game. So for atmosphere and volumetric clouds, there have been various improvements to cloud shadows. Code for local cloud shadows have been refined to be easier to control by artists as well as optimized. Clouds now also cast their own shadows onto the entire scene, which has become important for proper scene integration as the team start to use them on planets. Additionally, work to improve the renderer of cloud edges has been completed and more exposed to the artists to give them a more volumetric look. There was a bit of research into various topics. The first one was a quick prototype for better rendering of rain clouds. That was implemented. Secondly, integration of cloud shadows into the atmosphere has been implemented as well, amongst other things that will allow for light shafts from clouds. That will look incredible, I'm sure. And thirdly, because of the shadows in atmosphere, a prototype for improved rendering of multi-scattering in clouds and atmosphere was implemented, saying that it acknowledges the presence of clouds in the atmosphere when it comes to indirect light and will help shading clouds with brighter, more natural white tones in shadows, as well as the ambience of overcast skies on the ground, so less hazy and bluish in the case of Earth-like planets. These research items are still work in progress and will hopefully mature enough to be shipped in the coming months with other improvements to rendering quality and performance. Very exciting hearing about all the work on clouds, and what we saw at CitizenCon looked phenomenal. Of course, it's not finished, but even in that early stage, it looks so good. I really hope that we can see these come with 3.16, so by the end of the year, rather than having to wait till next year to get planetary clouds, because I just think they look amazing now. Anyway, moving on, work on the performance regression system picked up again with numerous supporting changes as it's becoming important to daily progress and development stability. The team also supported server meshing by decoupling code so it can run as a standalone service. They started forcing more on optimization too, with certain game scenarios frequently analyzed, reported and updated, and this brought various improvements that will be rolled out post 3.15. For example, they say entity component wake up was improved by keeping components active for some time, server object container streaming code was heavily optimized, and memory allocation when using SIG functions was improved. There were various other amends as well, such as moving runtime GPU buffer updates to background threads. So doing God's work, the engine team, thank you for all the efforts. Now, moving on to the character and weapon art team, they continued focusing on bug fixing and quality of life improvements for the player inventory and actor status features. With inventory running slower than they experienced on internal playtests, significant efforts were put into making it more responsive wherever possible, along with item filtering. And as I said earlier, the progress they have made on the inventory system is night and day different from when it first came in. It is now a lot more responsive. There are so many better features with filtering and so on and so forth, and double click to equip. It could still do with some more optimizations, but it is certainly a lot better and not as much of a problem anymore. Now, the Grey Cap multi-tool is the first weapon and gadget to have two types of reloading actions, one for the healing attachment vial and the other one is for the battery, which means the user has to manage two different resources to get the best results from it. Now, I personally think it's very cool to have to replace batteries on the multi-tool, although we don't have that function in-game yet. Hopefully this will come with 3.15. I don't think it is, but I do love the management that will be involved with the multi-tool for whatever you want to do. I just hope we get like a multi-tool belt where you can store all the different attachments and batteries. That would be cool. Finally, the first iteration of the new underlying logic for the actor control state machine has begun testing last month. This will scale significantly better with project size and complexity, and it will also offer better debugging tools, reducing the time to find and fix bugs. Always creating these amazing tools that will just make development so much better for them, but also make it a lot smoother for us when we get it in our hands. Now, the gameplay features team supported various mission teams in connecting content to the reputation system. They also set up shops and bartenders in Orison and prepared for the Intergalactic Aerospace Expo. Work also began on allowing items to be sold at shops, the Future Cargo rework, and Jumptown version 2. Now, I do expect this quarter we will hear a lot more about the cargo refactor, as I'm almost certain that it is being implemented in some form, maybe little bits or all of it for 3.16. The Hull C was underpinned by this system, which is supposed to be coming in 3.16, so I do believe CIG's intentions are the end of the year for the cargo refactor. Also, it will be great to see any snippets of being able to sell items back to shops. Although the selling feature isn't completed until February next year, it would be very cool to see this progressing. And Tony Zurevec did say that he wants to try and get the ability to sell weapons, armor, and just these certain contents and items that we can probably loot, capable of being sold back to shops with then ships coming later. So hopefully by 3.16 as well, we will be able to sell back things like weapons and armor, just to help clear out our inventory, make a bit of profit, and make looting a lot more viable as well. So good things are coming. Now, for the vehicle features team, September saw progress with jump points, significantly progressing with party jumping, which I'm sure will just feel amazing. The team also further developed new animation techniques for the Hull C and supported visual effects with improvements to ground effects, with the remaining time spent on ship data debug improvements to further support development processes. Improvements were also made to turrets for a future release, and experiments were done on missile tuning and balance across the game. The team are also exploring how to further build on operator modes, which will be cool. I would love to see what they come up with there, as this will help to expand on the multi-crew aspects of all ships, so really hoping to see some cool stuff from them. Now, the lighting team polished and optimized Orison's new shops. They also continued to finalize the upcoming hospitals and clinics. Support continued for the colonialism outposts, with lighting passes almost complete on all current modules and components. And finally, optimizations and polish work is ongoing, and new dynamic lighting was added to support airlock cycling. I will say that what we saw at CitizenCon for the outposts looked incredible, and I can't wait to explore them all. Now that they're on with the polish work and the lighting stuff, the downstream teams things, they are clearly very close to being completed. And we did hear from Todd Pappy during that demo at CitizenCon while they're in Pyro that they wanted to bring at least 50 of these outposts of varying types to Pyro. So hopefully at launch of Pyro we will see all of those, as well as maybe some in Stanton, because they will be able to spread them around Stanton now as well. Now, the narrative team, beyond all the Alpha 3.15 work, they spent time discussing details about the development hacking gameplay, Pyro's space stations, and non-water based oceans. Very interesting conversations there. I'm actually looking more forwards to hacking gameplay now as well, so I think that's end of year or next year, early, I can't remember. Anyway, for QA, a new publishing checklist was created to manage the inevitable requirements for daily publishers. Also, the team's training path was reworked to better align with wider development. For embedded testing, the AI-based team focused on movement fixes for NPCs, which has far-reaching implications. They also tested turrets, targeting, and general functionality in response to player threats. For the engine team, QA supported with minimum spec PC stress testing, along with continued page heap testing to catch memory leaks. Furthermore, automation training continued with the aim to create automated test cases for different departments. And finally for QA, they continued to support the tools team with DataForge, StarWords, Excel Core, Copy Build, and the Sandbox editor. So QA are working super hard there. Very happy to hear that the minimum spec PC stress testing is continuing. Hopefully they can find some wins, firstly to help improve those with lower end PCs, but hopefully across the board as well. Now for the Systemic Services and Tools team, they continue to work on the Economy, Tools and Quantum, which is the background simulation. Edge cases were also wrapped up for easier use and recording. The team finished off some foundational adjustments to Diffusion and how it communicates with the dedicated game servers in form of adjustments to the Direct Connect dedicated game server thread bridge. The service engineers are now working with their gameplay engineering counterparts on a new gameplay system for the mercantilely minded player. Oh, very excited to hear that. What is it that they're doing? Could it be for selling items back to shops? Or maybe selling items to other players? Or could it be more to do with commodity trading and doing these trade runs? Hopefully it is all three. Work also continued on intelligent NPC spawning with an impressive internal milestone hit by the team. I will say for 315, the spawn closets in the underground facilities do need a bit of tweaking because each spawn closet spawns both security members and outlaws in the same closet, so you can't tell the difference sometimes, and it doesn't seem like it's supposed to be that way, so hopefully they'll tweak that before it goes live so that we're not continually shooting security. That's my excuse anyway. Right, last month the Turbulent Services team deployed a new launcher that contained updated logic for the Verify feature, extending the time of the warning message on game launch and updating bindings with new loading sequences. And finally, the team also continued to refactor the entity graph and worked on the matchmaking service. Two very important systems there. Last month, the UI team focused on performance improvements, optimizing some of the more costly areas of the user interface, with the team saying we made more progress on the underlying code work of the star map and started to get some placeholder UI into development builds so that we can really start playing around with it, as you will eventually. I'm so very happy that the new star map is coming along well, setting aside the fact that it is a much needed quality of life improvement. I bet it will just look phenomenal and hopefully offer a lot more information about each planet, each moon, each location. That would be very nice, letting us know temperatures, environments, and eventually weather conditions and so on. That sort of information is probably going to get set up ready for when it is available, but when it comes to navigating and planning your trips, knowing where you're going and what to expect is going to be very important, and hopefully the star map will incorporate that. For the vehicle tech team, they have been putting finishing touches on a Squadron 42 specific vehicle mechanic with the aim of expanding it into the PU. No idea what this is. Could it be boat movement stuff, maybe on water, as the work on the boat movement parameters specifically for Squadron 42 came to a close in June this year. That is just a guess, that is all I've got. Do let me know what you think that could be. The team also laid the groundwork for incorporating radar and scanning into FPS gameplay with some functional radar and scanning design changes in the works. Really looking forward to these scanners, radars, the maps, all coming for FPS. It will be a great quality of life update when they do. Finally, for the vehicle team, they made major improvements in how players control doors and other room-related interactions like lights, atmosphere, and communication systems, with all of these being in the prototyping stages. The aim, they say, is to fully immerse the players by allowing them to control their environments while exploring on foot. Now, I really look forward to when all of this functionality is in our ships. Well, everywhere actually, but I can imagine that all the interactions we will have available to us, let alone the physical components when they come in, it is going to be very interesting when we're moving around our ship, having full control and interactions with not just the components, but the rooms, life support, lighting, and applying that to planetside locations, space stations, and everywhere else that will need them. So amazing progress there that they are now prototyping that stuff. Finally, for the visual effects team, they finished off their work on the new vehicle wakes, and effects were completed for an unannounced ship. Plus, they say further development work was done on theatres of war. I wonder when we'll get the next update on that, or even a playtest. That would be nice. Anyway, there you have it. A load of incredible work progressing from all the teams across the board. Very excited to see the selling and cargo refactor evolve, and I do think all of that will take up a lot of time in the verse for me when it does arrive. But with that said, if you do enjoy my videos, please do consider subscribing and helping the channel to grow. Also, if you'd like to talk more about Star Citizen, or just hang out and watch me play some 315 for the time being, do come and follow me over at twitch.tv/supermacbrothers. You are all more than welcome to hang out with myself and my amazing community. Hit that like button if you don't mind, it does the channel a big favour, and tick that notification bell if you would like to be notified when my videos go live. Again, huge thank you to my patrons and channel members. Cannot do this without you guys. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.